He'll see things no one can. Ethiopia, stay united. Let's all stand. Zenawi was that kind of man.
He dreamed the incredible dreams.
ጀግና አይሞትም።
The unbeatable force. He bears.
ኧረ እባካችሁ መለስ ሞተ አትበሉኝ። የጀግንነት ልሳኑን በጥሞና ስሙልኝ። ለሰው ልጅ አንድነት፣ ለእድገት ብልጽግና፣ ለእኩልነት አገር፣ ለሰላም መዲና እንድትሆነ አገራችን አኩሪ ታሪክ ገድል ሲታገል ኖሯል ለእድገታችን እና መለስ ከቶ አልሞተም፣ ይኖራል መልካም ሥራው እስከ ዘላለም። የ3000 ዘመን ታሪክ ያላት ሀገር መብላት አልቻልንም ብሎ በመናገር የኢትዮጵያን ሕዳሴ በጀግንነት ሲያበስር ልማት እንጂ ልመናን ከቶ አናወርስም፣ መጪው ትውልድ በድህነት ፈጽሞ አይኖርም እያለ የለውጥ አዋራነቱን ላሳየን ሳይደክም እኛም ለኢትዮጵያ ሕዳሴ ወደ ኋላ አንልም። እባካችሁ ሰዎች መለስ ሞተ አትበሉኝ። መለስ ከቶ አልሞተም፣ ይኖራል መልካም ሥራው እስከ ዘላለም። ስለዚህማ ለምታድገው አገር ለብሩህ ተስፋችን፣ ለነጻነት ዘመን ለልማት ግባችን እንበል አለን በተጠንቀቅ እኛም በተራችን። እና መለስ ሞተ አትበሉኝ፣ የጀግና ሥራ ሲሞት መቼም አላየው።
We remember that no leader in the modern history of Ethiopia did more to take people out of poverty, out of illiteracy, from disease, from squalor, from want, than Prime Minister Meles. No one did more to eradicate the evils that arise from poverty than he did. And no one achieved more in these 2 short decades in which he was power in the history of the continent of Africa at that time than Prime Minister Meles. It is also the case that Sophocles, the great Greek writer, said you've got to wait until the evening before you can see how splendid the day was. The memorial that he would welcome most, in my view, is that millions of people who will never have met him, millions of people who will never know his name perhaps, millions of people in Ethiopia have opportunities, have options, have choices, and have chances that they never could have had without him. That is the memorial that he and his family would value. All of us who remember Prime Minister Meles remember him as soft-spoken. I used to speak to him on his mobile phone, and I remember still that soft-spoken voice. They remember also that warm, winning smile. To remember too Prime Minister Meles as a family man, the pride he took as I talked to him about his children and their opportunities for the future, but they will remember him also as a man of great passion for justice, a man who was determined that every citizen in his country had the best chances possible. As we remember Prime Minister Meles, let us rededicate ourselves to the cause of securing justice for millions of people denied it, opportunity for millions who are still excluded, opportunity to escape poverty for millions of people in the Africa that he loved. Thank you very much.
Meles did not, of course, just help us understand these matters. He was profoundly a man of action, and he acted on these dreadful enemies, as Gordon has just said, with purpose, enemies of human life and dignity. He was, when he died, rightly identified by other heads of African governments as their champion, and he was equally acknowledged in the prosperous world as a key international leader of the developing world, and also as a teacher. In trying to recognise today what he achieved, I want to comment on a few things. The first is that he was among the most fiercely independent thinkers I ever had the honour to know. He was a great thinker and he was a great man of action. And he clearly understood, where others had not as clearly understood, the need for durable development, for robust infrastructure, for replacing aid over time with Ethiopian economic dynamism as the route to eradicate poverty. Before I ever met him, I knew parts of his extraordinary story. My friends at the Open University told me with some wonder of a young African liberation leader, a significant military commander, who'd studied for their prestigious Masters of Business Administration degree whilst fighting in the bush. The staff of the Open University candidly could not understand how this might be possible. It was remarkable enough in itself that the student in question, Zenawi, after many years of study, then achieved in 1995 the highest ever recorded mark awarded in the history of that degree, and I believe it's a record he still holds. In discussions in Addis and Sirte, in the Gambia, in Brussels, in New York and in London, on each occasion you could only be impressed by his forensic intellect and his ability to act effectively. Discussions ranged over the stability of the African Union, its leadership, the opportunities that might exist and were being missed for resolution in Darfur, the advancement of women in his own country, the opportunities demanded by young Africans for an economic life, the importance of access to the sea for the Ethiopian trade and economy, and many other difficult issues. I just give a couple of quick examples. His analysis of the clans and sub-clans around Mogadishu was the most accurate and compelling I ever heard. His understanding of what could be achieved and the timing that might be required were far ahead of the thinking anywhere else. He was forensic and he was practical. When we discussed tensions on the Eritrean border around the town of Badme, his assessment of forces and capabilities deployed on both sides, of the diminishing security of the UN mission, were better insights than I had heard anywhere else. It became possible after discussion with him to work out, and he worked it out of course, how he could move his forces back to lessen tension, and the international community could always have confidence in the decisions that he took. It was always easiest to work with him when we asked our advisors to leave us. That was the time you could have an informal chat. We talked openly and honestly, we were serious of course, but I must tell you we laughed a lot as well about life in general. We'd follow that up in the same spirit on the phone as friends do. And we never ever failed to talk about our great shared passion for football and the latest clashes in the Premier League. I don't mean this frivolously, he was a real man, a real person. The Prime Minister was, I don't share this with him, a passionate Manchester United fan. In the Gambia,
we need to make sure that more and more countries in Africa are so practicing good governance, anti-corrupt governance, democratic governance, and representative governance, that every country in Africa in our lifetimes will become an example of good governance with good leadership, like the one given by the Prime Minister of Ethiopia. So this is a time for celebration, for challenge, and for looking ahead with ambition and optimism. Thank you very much.
I later had the privilege of working with him in 2004-05 when, with our Chair Miles and others, we were writing the report for the Commission for Africa, where he was a driving influence, both politically and intellectually. Then a few years later, in the run-up to the climate change conference in Copenhagen in 2009, where it was Meles who insisted on and obtained the promise of 100 billion per annum in flows from developed to developing countries. Let's see if they make good on that promise. We continued that collaboration on the United Nations Advisory Group on Climate Financing in 2010, which he co-chaired and steered, often managing great political tension, whilst at the same time carefully scrutinising the analytical detail. Our last collaboration, one which I hold very dear, was on the BRICS-led Development Bank, which was in large measure his conception. That's not widely known or understood, but in large measure his conception, and which he knew before he died was likely to go forward. The decision to do so was taken last month.
I first met Meles in the early 90s. He was an astonishing individual who I think will be judged as one of the great men of Africa. He came out of a revolution. He turned Ethiopia into the start of being an economic powerhouse and a marketplace. He had extraordinary personal magnetism. The reason why other countries outside Ethiopia looked to him and to Ethiopia was because of his personal qualities as well as his high intelligence and clear commitment to developing Ethiopia in the right way. I remember very early on saying, well, what would count as success for you? And he said, when I can step down after being elected leader from office. And when I saw him on several occasions, I'd always say, well, hang on, it hasn't arrived yet. And it's a great tragedy that it didn't arrive, because he died at a time when Ethiopia could ill afford to lose him, and indeed Africa could ill afford to lose him. But that he wanted to step down, that he wanted Ethiopia, and I still hope Ethiopia will become a great democratic, open state, I have no doubt.
Thank you, Meles Zenawi, for your leadership, your great achievements, and your friendship. We will miss you badly, but your work goes on.
معسكم ويتكم وينتي موت ندوز موتي رقيتنا يولنا من قد خان لفات وينو على ما موت جامبر اي موت كان نسخان تماحيون الموت كنا مسل كافا قد غير كايو أتدب غيندي خغير كايو نبعت زبنا فرده فرقة استمقرو نحضر خلف وبني نسند كله زقبرو ملس أي موت كنس مركا كله أتموت بأمبر ملي معاز ميتكا كامل بناوتيو ماني فقط لك نحسو من موت سعرك يوديها هي وخازن تعلم لافيون كم زناتكم يوم من بار مالت قبل بلافيون ود أفريقيا ود ملا عالم عتاز عين خاص زي فلد بار هي وخازت عالم كم زاد حي برهان عالم هي وخاكم نبولدو ملسي مالت زبندو كم زناتك يوم من بار مالت قبل بلافية ونت سماتاتنا كم زناتكم يوم من بار مالت قبل بلافية ونت